So apparently, Lupe Fiasco has decided that 2026 is the year of the Kendrick Lamar media tour. Over the last week alone, we've seen him pop up on Quality, the Rap Roundtable, Skip and Jalopy Stream, and now the latest episode of Culture United. And somehow, no matter where the conversation starts, it eventually circles back to Kendrick Lamar. And now, before the nation of fiasco start crying in my comment section, let me make something crystal clear. I have absolutely no issue with Lupe Fiasco believing he's a better rapper or a lyricist than Kendrick Lamar. In fact, I would be disappointed if he didn't. Hip hop is a competitive sport at the end of the day. Every great rapper should believe they are the best, unless your name is J. Cole. But Jay Z believes it, Nas believes it, Kendrick Lamar believes it, so Lupe Fiasco should believe it too. That has never been my issue. My issue is that this conversation has stopped feeling like competitive confidence and has started feeling like an obsession. I tuned into the Culture United stream during roughly maybe what the last 40 hour or so. So I'm not going to pretend like I know everything that happened before I arrived because I didn't rewind it back. But I'm only speaking on what I actually watched. And from that point of view, I didn't feel like this didn't feel like a panel discussion. It felt like a platform for Lupe to vent amongst his diehard fans, supporters, not named BK. Over and over again, he'd be asked a question, a direct question, only to go off on a tangent that never actually answered what was being asked from him. Even more frustrating is the fact that very few questions were circled back to in order to hold him to the original question. Again, I came in a little late, but one of the examples that automatically stands out to me is the logic discussion. Someone asked Lupe whether he genuinely believed that Logic was a better rapper than Kendrick Lamar. Like, that's a simple question. Just yes or no could have been the answer. But instead of answering it, he pivoted into talking about King Los and why nobody questioned him mentioning Los. Again, all this shit is subjective. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. There are plenty of people in the world who think King Los is the best of the best. There isn't, though, one sane person walking this green earth that thinks Logic is the best of the best in comparison to anybody, not just Kendrick. And Lupe knows that. He knows that. So pretending to be shocked there was no pushback with Los, but pushback with Logic is just another example of how disingenuous he is when it comes to the bullshit he puts into the atmosphere. I was literally in the chat screaming, and I think Justin saw me screaming because he ended up circling back. But I was in the comment section in the chat begging for this nigga to answer the damn question. Because again, from the moment I joined the stream, that's what kept happening. A question would be asked, and somehow we'd end up talking about a bunch of other bullshit completely different. Like I said, eventually Justin brought him back and got him to somewhat address it because again, he continued to talk about Los and fucking Rosenberg Raw. But that's what the conversation needed more of, follow up questions, accountability. Another thing that stood out to me was how often Lupe appeared to use L as a shield during certain parts of the discussion. There were moments where someone would ask Lupe a question directly, and instead of answering it himself, he'd respond with some bullshit like, L will answer that with the facts, or I'm talking to L. Now, maybe L doesn't see it this way, and that's completely fair. But from where I'm sitting and watching, it looked like Lupe selectively chose when he wanted to engage with the room and when he wanted to retreat into a conversation with someone he knew would automatically agree with him and handle him with kid gloves. And that shit just confused me because if you only wanted to have certain conversations with Elle, why the fuck did you join the panel? You could have had this conversation with her on her platform where nobody showed up. Instead, it came across like you were standing behind one of two Black women in the room instead of addressing everyone equally. I did not care for that. I did not like that at all. But I digress because I think focusing only on the panel really misses bigger picture here. Because earlier today, I asked a simple question on my Twitter. Are people becoming anti Lupe, or are they simply tired of his shit when it comes to Kendrick Lamar? And the overwhelming response wasn't that people suddenly hate Lupe Fiasco, it was that they're exhausted. They're just tired of his shit. They're exhausted because every few months, Kendrick's name somehow finds its way back into anything Lupe has going on by Lupe's own doing. Meanwhile, Kendrick hasn't said a thing about Lupe Fiasco in almost a decade, bro. A decade plus. That's what makes this dynamic feel so one sided. Lupe has inserted himself into Kendrick discourse far more than Kendrick has ever inserted himself into anything Lupe related. Another thing is Lupe has positioned himself as the authority on what counts as lyricism because he teaches at university. Nobody gives a fuck that you're teaching white kids about rap, nigga. He running around here as though his definition is the definition. You have to be able to do one thing to be considered this or that. Who the fuck died and made you the final boss, bro? Lyricism has never been one singular thing. Lyricism falls under technical writing, under storytelling, under rhyme construction, under wordplay. It falls under imagery. Lyricism is conceptual writing, emotional vulnerability. It's fucking thematic consistency. It's knowing how to communicate ideas in ways that leave an impact. Every great lyricist doesn't prioritize those tools in the exact same order. Some lean into technical complexity, others lean into storytelling, others lean into emotion, others balance all of it together. Somewhere along the way, people started acting as though lyricism only looks one way. And honestly, that way of thinking is idiotic. It's simple minded, it's narrow minded. The confusion between technical ability and lyrical ability is becoming unbearable with you niggas. Bar for bar, punchlines, double entendres, triple entendres, those are displays of lyricism. They're not the entire definition of lyricism. So who honestly cares if Lupe or other fans believes Kendrick doesn't use enough double or triple entendres? Since when did that become the measuring stick for greatness? There are countless literary devices that great writers use. Ironically, Kendrick is probably the best rapper today at weaving Easter eggs, symbolisms, callbacks, and hidden references throughout his music. And before anybody say those aren't double entendres, shut your ass up. They're not supposed to be. A double entendre asks you to hear one line in two different ways. An Easter egg is a hidden clue or references waiting to be discovered. They're different literary techniques, but they accomplish something very similar. They reward listeners who pay attention. They reward replay value. They invite discussion. You don't see Kendrick fans running around saying that because Kendrick layers Easter eggs better than everybody else, nobody else is lyrical or nobody else can do Easter eggs. That would be ridiculous. So, why is the reverse acceptable? Why has one particular style of writing become the only style that some people are willing to recognize? That's gatekeeping. Y'all are finger wagging. And that's become one of my biggest issues with Lupe lately. Not because he values technical rap, he absolutely should, but because he increasingly talks as though every other form of lyrical excellence exists beneath the style he personally values the most. And again, for the samurais in the back, who exactly appointed him the final authority on what qualifies as lyricism? Because that's what this has become. And be very clear, who gives a fuck what Lupe thinks? Look where it got him. No shade, but all shade. Like, come on. This shit has turned into a gatekeeping exercise. And it don't stop there. It don't. Because I've also noticed this reoccurring habit where Lupe questions other people's credentials before he'll even entertain their opinions. He'll see them live, he'll be in their comment section, he'll get on their platform and then try to belittle them and say what they can and can't say based on their credentials. He's challenged content creators over what qualifies them to discuss hip hop. He is implying people aren't equipped to critique his music. And that is where he completely loses the room. You don't have to agree with somebody's opinion. Debate the opinion, challenge the argument, but don't act like people need to submit a resume before they're allowed to participate in a conversation about a culture they actively support and a culture that they actively probably grew up in. Hip hop has always belonged to the people just as much as it belongs to the artist. And that's why I don't think this is really about lyricism anymore. I think this is about something much deeper with Lupe. Because if you've been paying attention, this pattern didn't start this year. It didn't start on Culture United, the Rap Roundtable, or Quality's page. No. This conversation has been following Kendrick Lamar since 2013. I'm talking about Control. Remember what happened after that verse? Lupe went on Twitter, he went private, he made comments about people being easily impressed with Kendrick Lamar's verse. He fired off passive aggressive remarks because Kendrick didn't mention his name. He got upset because fans were kicking his back in because he was popping shit about Kendrick. Fans didn't just run up on him. No, Lupe, you started it. And the fans responded to it. And here we are, 13 years later, still talking about Kendrick Lamar. Not because Kendrick keeps bringing up Lupe, because Lupe keeps bringing up Kendrick. At some point, you have to ask yourself why. Especially after Lupe hinted during the panel that there's something deeper behind the scenes reasons for all of this. This is the first time he's ever admitted this on the panel tonight. He even suggested that some of the people on the panel tonight already knew what he was referring to. Okay, say it. If there's a legitimate story that changes how people should view this situation, then tell it. If you can't tell it, then don't dangle it in front of the audience's face. Because from the outside looking in, it feels less like context and more like a convenient way to justify 13 years of you talking shit about this man without ever fully explaining why. Either say it or mute the fuck up, Lupe. We don't want to hear it. We don't care. Circling back to my earlier point, I don't think people care that Lupe believes he's a better rapper than Kendrick. Remember, I said that earlier. I genuinely don't think people care. What people are growing tired of is feeling like every Kendrick conversation, Lupe inserts himself into it. You don't have no fans of your own to engage with, bro. Why are you intentionally seeking out pro Kendrick content creators to engage with in your spare time? Oh, also, before I forget, another point that really caught my attention during the panel tonight was Lupe's discussion about fans, right? At one point, he started talking about artists getting deleted because of the fans. He mentioned the shooting outside Drake's home and began trying to tie that into fan culture. And I genuinely didn't understand where he was going with that. Fans are going to do what fans have always done. They're going to argue. They're going to defend the artists they love. They're going to be passionate. That's literally why they're called fans, nigga. So again, what are you getting at? And what is the point of you saying artists can get deleted because of fans? Do fans and their opinions on their favorite artists have you that vexed? Like, this was such an odd thing to say on a panel. And of course, nobody asked him to elaborate what point he was trying to make. And continuing on with the fan talk, Lupe brought up losing his Reebok deal because promotional photos showed him wearing Nikes, right? He alleges he did a photo shoot with Billboard. His label sent over photos of him wearing Nikes, and because he had a deal with Reebok, he was dropped. His fans petitioned to get him back into his deal, I believe. And I'm sitting here thinking, how is that your fans' fault, Lupe? Your management approved those photos. Your team sent them over. Your business representative made that decision. Why are your supporters carrying the blame for a mistake they didn't make? They tried to rectify the mistake and start a petition to get you back into your deal. But you're on Culture United talking about it's their fault. This also reminds me of the video of him that went viral a couple weeks ago, where he's on stage. Some say he's joking, but there's always some truth in a joke. But he's berating his fans on stage, talking about his fans were burning his CDs and how he should be in stadiums right now. Why are you bringing up stadiums, Lupe? There's only one rapper who just got finished doing 40 plus dates in the stadium. Like, respectfully, it was never going to be you, Lupe. Ever. Not yesterday, not today, or tomorrow. Not every legendary rapper ends up in a stadium. Not every incredible lyricist becomes a global commercial phenom. Success looks different for different artists. What's meant for you is meant for you. And that's where I think some of this resentment towards Kendrick's fan base comes from. Because Kendrick didn't magically wake up with millions of loyal supporters. He built that relationship. Good Kid, Mad City was leaked before it was officially released, and the fans still showed up and bought it. Why? Because they believed in him. They connect with his music. They trust him. That kind of loyalty isn't manufactured, it's earned. Lupe seems to be jealous of that. He's also not the only one. I'm looking at you, Wale. And that brings me to something I've been thinking about for a while. Like, rappers resenting Kendrick's fans because their own fans didn't show up the way that they hoped is an odd way to handle disappointment. Instead of asking why does his audience connect with him the way they do, the conversation becomes his fans are the problem. No, his fans are not the problem. His fans are going to show up for him every time, and they're going to put y'all in y'all place when y'all try to push these fake and false narratives. His fans are doing exactly what fans are supposed to do. They're being fans. They're supporting someone whose work means something to them. You can't blame people for buying into an artist they genuinely connect with. And that's why I think some of these conversations completely miss the mark. They keep trying to diagnose Kendrick's fan base instead of asking what Kendrick has consistently done to inspire that level of loyalty. One thing that also disappointed me about Culture United discussion wasn't something that was said, it was something that wasn't said. The situation involving ABSA. You're sitting on a panel with Black women. You're having a conversation about accountability, respect, lyricism, and culture, yet nobody thought it was worth asking why Lupe publicly called another Black woman a bitch. Nobody thought that was important to discuss. That felt like a missed opportunity. Far too often, Black women get the shortest end of the stick in this culture. We move on from what happened to them while expecting them to simply deal with it. I would have liked to see that addressed with the same energy that everything else was. ABSA deserved that. And to wrap this up, Lupe is one of the greatest technical rappers we've ever heard of, right? His pen is elite. His early catalog deserves respect. I think his place in hip hop history is, it's important. It's secured. Nothing I've said changes that. But greatness as an artist doesn't exempt someone from criticism as a public commentator. And lately, that's where I think Lupe has lost a lot of people. He hasn't just been debating ideas, he's been talking down to people, invoking his academic credentials, questioning who deserves to speak on hip hop and who doesn't, narrowing the definition of lyricism to fit his worldview, and repeatedly inserting himself into conversations about an artist who publicly at least has shown very little interest in responding to anything he has to say. And that's what's unfortunate. Because when I think about Lupe, I'd rather spend time talking about food and liquor, the cool, how dope his pen is, how dope the storytelling and artistry is. Instead, every few months, the headlines becomes another conversation about Kendrick Lamar. Nigga, ain't you tired? You not tired? Lupe's legacy deserves to be bigger than constantly revisiting another man's career. And the irony in all of this is almost impossible to ignore. The control verse was supposed to be just a moment. That's what the people told us. That's what Drake told us. It's just a moment. It became a moment that changed hip hop. It changed egos. It changed conversations. It inspired responses. And apparently, for some people, it never really ended. 13 years later, there are still artists trying to argue their way out of how that verse made them feel. Meanwhile, Kendrick kept making music. He kept evolving. He kept winning. He kept moving forward. He never built his career around revisiting that moment. Other people did. So, no, I don't think this is about whether Lupe is a better technical rapper than Kendrick Lamar. I don't think it's about whether Kendrick uses enough double entendres. And I don't think it's about whether someone has a degree in hip hop. I think this is about a man who spent the better part of 13 years trying to convince the world that Kendrick Lamar isn't everything the world has watched him become. And the more Lupe tries, the more the conversation stops being about Kendrick and starts becoming about Lupe. At some point, you have to let it go because the rest of hip hop already has Lupe. You are embarrassing yourself.
Hey cousin, who you chilling with?
I'm chilling with MONIE.